Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Talking Away the Taboo. I am Dr. Aimee Baron. I am the founder and executive director of I Was Supposed to Have a Baby. And I was supposed to have a baby, and Rob Reider was also supposed to have a baby. And he is here tonight to tell his story. Rob is the second in our series of talking with fathers all about different aspects of Father's Day, what it means to them, how they really just their emotions surrounding being pregnancy loss. And that's really what we're here to do tonight. So we're thrilled to bring him on. Let me see if I can grab him. He is here. Let's see. So if anybody has any questions, here he is. Here he is.
Frame, can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you. How's that?
That's great. That's two for two. That's excellent. We're off to a running
We
start.
are. So as I was saying to everyone, we're here tonight to kind of, do some discussions around men and their thoughts and their feelings around fertility challenges as it's in the lead up to Father's Day. And I'm actually gonna just stop talking and really let you, I first of all, just introduce yourself quickly as to who you are, and like a teeny bit of your background, and then let's get right into it. We want to hear your story.
Thank you so much, Amy, for asking me and letting me come on here. And I have appreciated all the conversations that we've had leading up to now. And so this is super fun for me. My name is Rob. I'm a co-founder of the Sad Dads Club, and Sad Dads Club helps fellow bereaved fathers navigate life after loss by nurturing a supportive community and providing access to mental health services. I'm Lila's dad. I also am lucky enough to have a living child, 4-year-old son named Dallas. Lila is forever my wife and my firstborn. She was stillborn at 38 weeks, and totally boring pregnancy leading up to the day that we found out that her heart wasn't beating. Everything was fine and well and progressing. As I said, it was normal. It was boring. It was almost like the most uneventful, picture perfect pregnancy you can imagine. And then until it wasn't, and the floor dropped beneath us. That was back December 13th of 2017. And then we went on to struggle with infertility or have a experience with infertility, went on to pursue IVF, where we were very lucky to then bring in our son Dallas. And Sad Dads Club has become just my place and my mission and a big purpose of mine, a big part of my personality and my who I am. I yeah, so I do Sad Dads Club full time now, but I'm one of many within the community of men who share their struggles, their fears, their just feelings of complete and utter hopelessness at times. And it has to do with late term pregnancy loss, infant child loss, and also infertility. We run into that a lot within our community and we talk about it. And it's a remarkable community of men who are the most generous of heart. I always say that, and I don't just say it because I think it sounds good. I say it because it really is so true. These men are so wildly and incredibly phenomenal that it gives me goosebumps. It makes me start to perspire a bit just talking about them. So I start to look a little glossier. That's why. But
It's
that's me.
it's okay. So I want to. I mean, there was a lot there, and I want to try to like go back and then go forward and pick apart some of these pieces and talk more about it. Um, you are where you are now as one of the co-founders of Sad Dads Club, but I want to just, if we could go back to the time when you and your wife were thinking about starting a family and what that meant and getting pregnant and so on. So can you sort of just like rewind for us
Mhm.
when that all was happening, how you met your wife, and then, your pregnancy, the pregnancy with Lila, and the moment and the emotions that you had that you were going through when you discovered that Lila was stillborn. So like take us back and bring us to up to the point of when you found that out.
So Tehilah is my wife. She and I, from the moment we started dating, one of the earliest conversations I can remember us having was that we were so aligned with both wanting to have a family and that excitement around being parents. So that was something that I think immediately set us on the path towards being very serious with one another. And we got married in 2013 and took a little time just for ourselves to get settled, and then pursued trying to expand our family. And when we were lucky enough to get pregnant and we found out early on that it was a girl, we decided to reveal the gender because we were just so excited. And not that it would have been, there would have been no excitement. There would not have been any more excitement for a girl or a boy. It was excitement regardless. It was just a fun thing for us to learn. And so we spent the entire pregnancy envisioning a baby girl because that's what we knew we were having, so much so that we went on to decide a name that we thought was the prettiest and still believe is one of the prettiest names that we've ever heard. And it was total elation the entire time. We were just so excited because it wasn't that easy for us to get pregnant with Lila. And when we finally did, it was so intentional. It was so wanted and desired that we were really starting to visualize our lives. We were dreaming out loud. We were actually seeing these things that we had only talked about come true in front of us, and we were just waiting for the final piece. And as I had mentioned, or maybe more so glazed over earlier, it really was just a boring pregnancy. Everything at every appointment seemed normal and seemed fine and was progressing and growing and developing the way that it was supposed to medically. And then we went in for our 38-week appointment and there was no heartbeat.
Oh, God.
It was just, that was it. That was the one moment. And that was just, again, the floor from beneath us, it dropped. There was no floor. We dropped because we didn't have a floor to hold us. And we had to go to the hospital and we had to wait and wait and wait and wait. And it's so, in just the work that everybody in Sad Dads Club that we all do together, we hear about it a lot, and it doesn't make it any easier. It's still so visceral. And so for me, I still am so connected to every moment from the moment that we heard that there was no heartbeat and having to figure out what we do next, because it's just this, we're having people shuffle. Well, now you have to go to the hospital, now you have to deliver, now you have to wait here, and you have this choice to make and this choice to make, and do you want to cremate, do you want to bury, do you want to have pictures? And it's a nightmare that you're living in a time that feels like it's just dragging on, like you're stuck in molasses in this absolute uh, nightmarish reality. And that was December 13th of 2017, which I can say I'm sure I speak accurately for Tehilah, my wife, and I, that it was the worst day of our lives.
And how in comparison, the two of you together, what was what was your role? What was her role? I mean, obviously she was the one who was carrying the baby, but how did you support each other during, that immediate aftermath in the hospital? Who did you lean on? Like, how did your families help? What did they say? Can you give us a little bit of some color about that?
Yeah, I think we were among the luckier ones. And again, this goes into being so heavily involved with Sad Dads Club. I know that we received incredible care at the hospital where we were, which was in Portland, Maine. And they were so compassionate. Their EQ was off the charts. Like, they knew what we needed before it was very clear that they had dealt with this before, and they were so delicate and so loving and so deliberate and caring with us. And it was, that piece was remarkable. And in terms of our families, I mean, they were wanted to do everything that they possibly could for us, but this was the first time that something like this had happened in the family. I think that, similar to the way I have or would have been with friends and family early on, like it was new territory. We didn't, no one knew, everybody was there for us, but no one really knew what to do, ourselves included. We didn't know what to ask for. We didn't know what we needed. And in terms of role, and I immediately the first thing I can think of is that I said, I have to protect Tehila. I have to figure out what she needs because she is carrying Lila. She actually is physically enduring this experience. And while, yes, like the emotional distress that I was feeling certainly becomes physical, it's not the same thing. And I think a lot of men, this is a broad stroke, but I do think that this is one of our defense mechanisms because we're not ready to. This was still in a state of shock still, but I'm even talking about actually a little bit after the time when we left the hospital, but just going into a place of wanting to control a situation that felt so out of our control and wanting to do something that we could see ourselves fixing or being able to fix something that felt so broken and just grabbing at pieces wherever we could. And that for me became caring for Tehilah and making sure that she was okay. And I say making sure she was okay because it sounds ridiculous because of course she wasn't okay, but
Right.
just being there for her and ensuring that I felt like I was watching her like a hawk and like every facial expression or vibe that I could pick up on, I was trying to make sure that I was there in every way that she needed me. And going back to our families, I feel like I didn't do a really good job of answering or providing color around the way that they were, but they all came to us immediately. And that's remarkable. That's amazing. That's so loving. It was just such a blur that especially as Tehilah and I were in the hospital and the only other person that met Lila was Tehilah's sister. Like none of our other family members actually saw her or held her. So I think that's pretty complicated for our family, for us. Not complicated in that they wish it were any other way, but that Lila is just such this abstract
Right.
um, member of our family because she's so prevalent and so many people love her so much, but so few people have met her and spent time with her, the little time that she did have when she was Earthside.
And and can you talk a little bit about, in the weeks and the months afterwards, like what was that like for you? What was that like for Tehilah? How did you deal? I mean, Sad Dads Club wasn't around then. Um, I mean, I know I want you to talk more about that when we get to it, but talk about, how did you manage? What were the emotions that were coming up in terms of, the things that you were dealing with yourself and how you tried to support or wanted to be there for her, but also you were grieving too.
Everything was so unpredictable. It had to saying to try and take things day by day was way too overwhelming. To try and take things hour by hour was too overwhelming, and I feel like I'm saying a lot of things that we have talked about, and I know I'm jumping ahead to Sad Dads Club, but it applies because it was so disorienting to try and navigate in this empty house that was never quieter than it was in those following weeks and months. It was piercing. It was terrifying how quiet it was. It was eerie. There were things that were set up that were ready for Lila to come home and live with us in that house and grow with us in that house, but she wasn't there. And it wasn't that she wasn't there yet. It was that she came and she left. And she never, there's so many outfits in the closet. There's an entire nursery set up for her, and it's not ever going to be able to have her physically there in it. And so I I don't presume that Tehilah and I navigated things perfectly, and I don't think anybody can because it's an imperfect situation. It's hellish to put it as accurately as I can think of. I think that what we did and what we continue to do, which is why we are able to move forward in a productive and loving way with one another, is that we're patient and forgiving and understanding because there are so many different ways that I grieved versus the way that she grieved, and the timelines were hardly ever consistent. When one person wanted to talk, maybe the other person didn't. And that can be exhausting if you're not willing to recognize that it just is such a messed up and such a painful situation for everyone that there is probably never going to be any way that you find this perfect formula of going through. You just have to endure it, and you have to endure it together, and you have to be loving, and you have to be. And that's not to say like, oh, we got mad at each other and we got pissed off at each other, and it's
Of
not
course.
and it wasn't even at, and I think that we then recognize it's not at each other, it's at the pain that we're feeling, the anger that we have with the world, the confusion that is swirling constantly within our head and our hearts. And it was so, we got really lucky. We got to travel 3 weeks after we were home. We were able to get away someplace warm. We live in Maine, and this was in December, and so those days are so short, and they're very dark, and it's very cold, and we got somewhere warm, which was super helpful. We got out in the sun, and that really helped the two of us. But leading up those 3 weeks before we were able to get to that warm place, where I do remember it being the first time that we felt any sort of relief collectively, it was just so exhausting but sleepless. Like, you're so tired, but you can't sleep. And because when you go to sleep, then you wake up, and that's when everything starts all over again. And it's just this, it's a maddening cycle, and it's painful, and it's complicated, and I have no answers at all. Even thinking back to it now and trying to like tap back into it, I feel as though my body's like, no, move away. And my just natural reaction is to not go there because it was so impossible.
Yeah. I, I never had a stillbirth. I'm deeply grateful that I did not, but I had multiple miscarriages, and everything that you're speaking about, like the endless days and like being tired but not tired but tired, and the idea that like you want to go to sleep, but you know that when you wake up it's going to start all over again, and then you remember all over again, and then the pain washes all over you all over again. It's just, it is everything you're describing. It resonates so deeply. um I'm wondering also if you could maybe speak a little bit about Tehila and her family, and how they helped. Like, I remember you and I spoke a bit about her grandmother, and how she kind of helped give you some framing as to how to deal with this a little bit. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, firstly and most importantly, I mean, Tehilah's family is incredible. When I met each person that I met in her family when we were becoming more serious, it was so clear that Tehilah, whom I was so in love with and am still so in love with and will always be so in love with, meeting more of her family made it so clear. I was like, oh gosh, yeah, like of course, like her family is incredible and awesome and loving, and they're so emotionally there and available. And her grandmother is the most remarkable woman I've ever met in my entire life. And the space that was given to talk about Lila, and for Lila to always clearly be a part of the family, was immediately apparent, which is invaluable. I think even before you realize how much you need that when you're in the early days of grieving a stillbirth, which is so complicated. Even still, I don't have any expert advice because different things work for different people, because it is such an odd loss. And I say odd not to sound, I, the word odd is, I know, might be taken the wrong way by some people, but it is just so, it's so bizarre. It's eerie because it's just, it's a baby who is there and then who is not there. And that is really hard to grapple with. And they're a part of your family. But again, as I mentioned, not a lot of our family had met Lila. But back to your original question with just how her family showed up and responded, it was immediately apparent that we never had to shy away from talking about Lila and that she would be thought of, embraced, and loved by everyone in her family forever. And Tehilah's grandfather passed away, and he was a remarkable man. And reading the obituary and seeing her name mentioned, and Tehilah's aunt, her mother's sister, wrote the obituary and mentioned Lila in it, just in that, is predeceased by, and seeing that it was so validating. And so even still amidst something sad and amidst the loss, to see her as really considered part of the family was remarkable, and was heartwarming. um,
Wow.
for me, that was, and for Tehilah and for all of us, like that was just so, it was not that we doubted it for a moment, but it was just a reassurance that people were and are thinking about her, which is, I think, the greatest gift for me personally that I need in my journey of going through my life, wondering why my daughter's not there beside us. Knowing that other people are thinking about that too, and recognizing her absence also, and that she was, and that she is a part of our family. That's a big, really, really important component for me and for us.
I love that. I love that. And how, I mean, I hear stories all the time. I'm sure you do too, but how people just sometimes it is so hard to talk about the babies that are not with us anymore, and how people don't, they just kind of forget them, or they don't they don't recognize them as having been real. That and so I mean, it's so incredible that her family was able to do that for all of you. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's very special and remarkable and awesome, and I'm just, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. We are very lucky.
You are. But okay, now going forward, can sh tell me a little bit more about what what came next. Like, I know you spoke about your son, who is absolutely wonderful, your son Dallas, but did Dallas come first? Did Sad Dad's come first? Sad Dad's Club come first? How did it all kind of happen? Because, let me sort of like roll it backwards and say, stereotypically in the world at large, not only in the Jewish world, not only in the regular world, but just in general in the world at large, there is this notion that men don't talk about their feelings, that it is something like women do, and we know in so many of these mental health spaces, especially in on social media, and just in general, when you see support groups for people who are trying to have a family, they're most often they are filled with women or people who identify as a woman, and there are very few men, period. And now we know that obviously it takes two people. It takes two people to make a baby. It takes an egg and it takes a sperm, and you need two components. Both of those components are necessary. We know there are two partners that are involved, but for some reason, so much of the attention is focused on the woman, and also just so much of these like public spaces, these support groups and social media, et cetera, as I was saying, are also focused on the women. So just talk to me about where you where you fell in all of this, where all of this came to be, and give us a bit of the history as to how Sad Dads Club started.
So I always say that I had the fortunate misfortune of having a best friend of mine who had had a stillborn daughter 11 months earlier, and we lived next to each other in college, and then our first year of college we were next door neighbors, and we subsequently lived together throughout our remaining years. He went on to live at my parents' house after college because DC had a housing shortage, and he had a job but not a place to live. I was the best man in his wedding. Like, we're best friends. We go way, way back, and we both ended up back in Portland, Maine. He was expecting his second child any day now. We all knew, our whole friend group was aware that any day they were going to be bringing in they didn't know if it was a boy or a girl.
And
And
this was before Lila,
yeah,
after Lila? When was this?
so this was before Lila. This was January of 2017, and Lila
Okay.
was still born December of 2017.
Okay.
So in January of 2017, my best friend from college, Jay, his daughter Bella was stillborn. I had never heard of a stillbirth
Oh my
before.
God.
I had no idea that that could happen. When he had texted me and another friend of ours with whom we're very close that we lost the baby, I had no idea what could have possibly happened, because to my knowledge, any day now a healthy, happy baby was coming because they were due any day. So I was with him alongside, supporting his family as best I could while they were going through that. And I saw firsthand how absolutely heartbreaking and earth shattering that it is. And then 11 months later, and again, we were both living in Portland, Maine. Our wives were seeing the same doctor. Like, it was just crazy that then 11 months later, my wife and I had Lila, and who was
Oh
stillborn.
my goodness.
I always say I had the fortunate misfortune of having a best friend nearby geographically who I could immediately go to and I could immediately confide in. And conversations just naturally went to things that were unique to the father's experience, because we didn't have anywhere else to go with these things. And we all of a sudden were able to just confide in one another. And we went to a very small school in Maine, a small liberal arts school, Bowdoin College, and we, through a mutual friend, heard that a classmate of ours, she and her husband did not go to Bowdoin, but she did, but they were living in Maine, that they had had a stillborn daughter in July of 2018, and asked if, I think Chris originally was put in touch with Jay, but the three of us started hanging out and spending time together. And so this was before I did not have any living children at this point, and neither did Chris. Jay already had a living son who was 2 years old at the time he lost his daughter Bella. And the three of us were spending a ton of time together. We were talking all the time. We were an outlet for each other. We were able to talk about the things once again from the unique perspective of the father. And I was still, at the time, because Lila was delivered via C-section, we had to wait a certain period of time before we could start trying again. And then before we realized that we were experiencing infertility and having to then pursue IVF. But during this whole time, I had Jay and Chris that I could go to, and the three of us were one another's support system. And we conceptualized years before we actually started Sad Dads Club the idea of it, because we figured, like, we have each other to go to, but there are probably other guys out there who don't have anybody to go to, and who are alone, and who are struggling, and who are feeling incredibly alienated. And let's see where this could go if we created a community. We started a website. We started asking people to submit blog posts. We got people together somehow. And so, yeah, this was, once Sad Dads Club officially formalized and we decided to launch something, which was March of 2022. We set up an Instagram account, we set up a website, kind of half understanding and thinking we wanted to start a community of fathers who we wanted to make sure knew that they were fathers. And that, actually, I'm getting way off tangent, but I should mention, because this is so important, that my first Father's Day, and this leads exactly into why we're talking in the holiday that we're coming up to. My first, Lila was stillborn in December, and then so coming up to June of the following year, I just wanted Father's Day to move along and be done. I feel like every single holiday that's on a Sunday, for whatever reason, social media feels like it just drags out. Maybe it's because there's some content around that same theme, but it feels like it drags out. I just wanted to go, be done. I didn't want to think about it. I actively was hoping to ignore it. And Jay, who's Bella's dad, another co-founder of Sad Dads Club, Jay texted me Happy Father's Day. And I remember, like, looking at my phone and almost responding, and then not. And I was like, wait, what am I going to say to this? And I just said, I'm not a father. And he said, yes, you are. You're Lila's dad. And that was a literal light switch moment for me that just, I can say that after that moment, everything was different. My perception was different. My perspective was also different. Everything changed after having that validation from him. And so, gosh, where was I going to put a bow on this and tie it up real nice? Probably not anywhere that made sense to anybody else except for me, but that happens often.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. No, the what I was trying to get you to was just the idea of, why being together in community with men is so powerful. And then you were kind of leading us to Father's Day.
Okay, so back to us conceptualizing and then eventually launching Sad Dads Club, it was something that we just saw we got such immense benefit from. We felt better in all other areas of our lives, so we thought, what do we have? I don't. This isn't actually. We didn't think, what do we have to lose by trying it? I think we thought we could really make an active change, and that we could really help some people. And also, we wanted that help. We wanted to expand that network. Not that we were sick of one another, but we wanted to see this thing grow because we realized how unbelievably important it could be. I would say bordering vital. And the notion that men are supposed to grin and bear it, or be tough, and tough is defined as unemotional, is just so entirely outdated because it's detrimental to the any person who ignores their grief or ignores the way that they're feeling, whether or not it's a pleasant emotion. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to get shoved down. It's going to compound if you don't put it anywhere productive, if you don't acknowledge it, if you don't recognize it, if you don't have a release for it that's healthy. It's going to just destroy you. And I think that we thought that, I know we thought, and I know we think, and I know that Sad Dads Club, we're full of men who are just understand and recognize that there is no shame in being lost or hopeless or sad or crying, or like this. It's rooted in something so real, and it should, I hope, have a ripple effect and just into anyone experiencing any feelings of discomfort, because those are real, and because you have to acknowledge them. And having a community in which to do that and be validated and feel comfortable giving that release, if it's just talking about your child and talking about something that has to do with you feeling really alone, lost, confused, and sad, you get validation, and all of a sudden that alone feeling is gone. And I think that is the most dangerous one amidst grieving that somebody can have. Whatever they're going through, if you feel alone going through it, it's it's torture, and it's endless. Like, you never get anywhere with an emotion and with a feeling that is so dark. If you feel alone doing it, you can be given some light and some hope from other people around you who say, I'm validating you because I felt exactly that way, and I'm actually hearing you, and if you just want to talk, then you can do that, and that's fine. And you are not going to be rushed. You're not going to see me squirm. It's a remarkable community of men, and I think that there's so many who do it so much better than I do, even at this point, that are just showing up for each other. They're so unwavering in their belief that being there for another man is, in effect, redefining masculinity and saying, like, I think that this is actually the most, like, masculine thing you can do, is to be aware of and in touch with your emotions.
I I am so much like just sitting and listening to you, and you're saying all of the things that we talk about all the time here at I Was Supposed to Have a Baby. And I think anyone who is dealing with any kind of fertility challenge, I think all of us talk about, like, there is a lot of research out there that says that the more you actually process your emotions, that you have discussions about it, that you chat with people, whether it's just in a group like Sad Dads Club, or it's actually with therapists, or what a proper support group, a different support, whatever it is, the more that you process, the easier it is for you to be able to put that deep pain in a place in your life so that you can hold it with you instead of having it overwhelm you.
So,
And you have such a tremendous fan club, by the way. Here in the comments, people are like, Sad Dad's Club changed my life and is a
wow.
huge part of the reason how I keep my son present in my life. Like, there are people just on and on talking about how much of a difference that it has made in their lives. I want to ask you, just back to Father's Day. Father's Day is coming again. It is coming next week on Sunday. I love, the way, I guess it was maybe Chris or Jay, that they basically said to you what you said, what you were sharing before, but when you were carrying Lila with you and you were kind of wanted to push Father's Day away, and they're like, no, you are a father. You are Lila's father, no matter whether she is here or not. So I guess my question to you is, for all of the dads out there now, the fathers, the men out there who are worried about Father's Day, who are either dealing with infertility or dealing with some kind of a loss, how do you recommend they go through this week, they go through Father's Day?
I would be as patient and as caring as you can be with yourself. I think we're all really good at being caring and giving grace to others, and I think that we need to give it to ourselves. I should just speak, I shouldn't make a broad stroke. I am always telling people that, they should be gentler with themselves and that they should give themselves patience, space, and time. And I need to do the same thing for myself. Just as we are always willing to give it to others, we need to give it to ourselves. And I think that the moment that you open your heart to boundlessly love um, a child and grow with them and share your life, that you are a father. And I know that scientifically it becomes more specific, and that there are expectations that you have and that you want so badly. And life becomes way, way more complicated as we get older, and we realize that things are just not as easy as we are led to believe, and the story does not unfold in the way that we thought it necessarily would. And that pain and that hurt nobody deserves. And so whatever you can do in a healthy way to relieve yourself of it, which is so, like, I offer no, I always say I wish I had something definitive that could be universally relieving, but there just isn't. You have to find that thing in you, and you just have to be gentle with yourself. You have to be patient, and just know that there are others out there also feeling that, like you. It might seem like, especially on those days, and I got off social media entirely for 4 years when I lost Lila, just because of place in life. There were so many birth announcements, there were so many healthy births, and that was really hard to see, and I was angry and I was mad, and then I would feel guilty for having feelings of jealousy and anger towards something that was so miraculous and that I wanted so badly. And so for me, it was just best to have it not put there right in front of me. I think social media can be an incredibly unifying tool. I think it can also be a very painful reminder if you've experienced and are living with loss of what other people have. And if that's the case, try and recognize spaces and things that just aren't serving you, and try and then also fill those with spaces and things that do and are filling you in a healthy way. And that I just can't reiterate that it is said often that you're not alone, but you really aren't. There are so many other people who are hurting and going through this unbelievable longing of having the picture of their life appear the way they wish it would. And it doesn't, and it won't. And that sucks a lot, that it won't, because that's a definitive, like, it just won't. But you're not the only one for whom it won't. And I think that it is very important to be reminded that alienation is dangerous, and feeling alone is dangerous, and just try and find people who you can go to who will validate what you're going through, because they are there. They are out there. They exist. They're all around. It just, people are less likely to post a picture on Facebook of something tragic than they are of something beautiful.
Right. And I guess in in sort of closing and wrapping all this up, to all the women, or to all the partners in our lives, in your lives, what do you recommend to them? You know, as the person who is not carrying the baby, there are so many deep emotions that you have, and that all dads have, regardless of whether they're the ones who are carrying or not. How do you recommend that we as partners support you? What can we do to make it easier for you? Suggestions on that.
Forgiveness and patience. That's all I can think of. And I know that that sounds, it's more complicated than it sounds, because the situation is just so, it's such a roller coaster. I think patience is the most important one. Okay, let me put forgiveness, patience, understanding, and space. If people need space, that doesn't mean that they don't want to be with you. It just means that they might need to center. And I think that can be often construed as a personal thing when it really shouldn't be. But I shouldn't, I don't, just understanding, grace, patience. It's hard. There's nothing that I can really definitively offer across the board.
What I'm specifically asking, I know there, I mean, all of these things are like, you know, can you give me the advice for all men? Obviously you can't, right? Obviously, I'm like pushing you to give me an answer, which is impossible. But I think what I was thinking about is, there are so many times where I hear from people, well, it seems as if my husband just doesn't care. It seems as if, like, he's so hard to talk to. I just need someone to talk to. And he's like, you know, off trying to like renovate the bathroom. Or
Mhm.
like he's constantly leaving the house and, you know, hanging out with his friends. And he gets angry easily, but he doesn't want to talk. And I keep asking, like, what should or could a spouse or a partner do when you have someone, obviously both of you are going through the same things, but when someone is just not willing to open up, not wanting to, it's not as if they're not having any of those feelings, but they're just not doing that, and they seem to be avoiding it instead. Do you have any suggestions for that kind of a scenario?
If anybody who out there is a birthing parent and has the non-birthing parent slash husband partner male, I would encourage them to get in touch with Sad Dads Club, because I think that it has been a really effective community for people who are not necessarily ready to open up to their partner, um, but ease into understanding that also it's okay to feel. There's a reluctance. I can speak personally, to feel as though I'm lost, or I'm confused, or I don't know how to fix something. It feels like you're a failure, and you feel as though you have failed because you couldn't protect your child, you couldn't protect the picture of your family. I think just uh, it, and this isn't meant to be any sort of like advertisement for Sad Dads Club, but I have seen just how remarkable this community is for men who are at all stages of their grief cycle, and who are also at all stages of distance from their loss. So it doesn't matter if it was recent, or if it was years ago, or decades ago, or multiple decades ago. We have dads from all over the time map who engage with us and who find value in being validated and understanding what they're going through better by hearing what other men are going through, and being like, oh my God, you know what? I couldn't have articulated that because I never thought of it that way, but you just hit the nail on the head of exactly what I'm going through. And I think that the understanding that couples, you know, within a collective, that the individuals grieve differently is by far the hardest part, second to the loss, to go through and to explore and to endure together, because they're separate journeys, and you just have to understand that sending them one way, as long as they're not doing anything harmful and unhealthy for themselves, is going to be potentially beneficial, and that them shutting down to you isn't a response to who you are or who you are to them. I think, again, I keep going back to Sad Dads Club just because these guys are so unbelievably candid and raw and helpful with one another. And every time somebody new joins, it's just like met with open arms. And it's I've seen the good that it does, and I've seen the interactions and read the correspondence because we have a Discord channel where we have multiple subthreads going on, and the way that people respond, that one dad responds to another, and it's actually seeing progress in grieving and healing. And it doesn't take away from, that person's family. It actually lets them go back and be a more present and version of themselves that they also, the dad, the individual, is more comfortable with and is used to being in that setting. You have to find an entirely new version of yourself that you are comfortable with and that you understand amidst a life changing, life altering, heart shattering situation in reality. And it's losses so deep and complicated, and it never ends. So the sooner that you can find a way to get in touch with everything that you're going through, the sooner you're going to be able to return to a life that is, not to say that it will never look exactly the same, but it's one that you're comfortable being in again. And you're not feeling like you just want to jump out of your skin, or you're in constant discomfort because your chest is literally tightening at every point of the day because you're scared you're going to be triggered by something, whether predictable or unpredictable. I can't overstate the value that I see in peer-to-peer support and how unbelievably helpful it can be.
Yeah, there is tremendous value in community, and that effectively that is what you're talking about. You're talking
Yeah.
about finding people who get it, who really, really get it, and then opening up and sharing with those people. That's where the healing comes.
Mhm.
And I hear you. I know that's a lot of what we do here also at I Was Supposed to Have a Baby is provide that space, the comfort, the safeness, the validation, the resonance, so that people know that they're not alone. And that in and of itself, without even anything else, and there's so much more that you do, there's so much more that we do, but even that is goes a long way to providing a tremendous amount of healing. Um, Rob, I can't thank you enough for coming and sharing your story and telling us more about Sad Dads Club. Just tell people where they can find you.
I'd go to saddadsclub.com. We have a whole events page. There's registration for our weekly Zooms. We do as many as 9 to 10 Zooms a month, so different Zooms for different situations. Instagram at sad.dads.club is a very quickly responded to DM inbox, so Aimee can attest that I'm a quick responder, and I just think that it's a whole, that's the best way to reach us. And then I am the moderator of the Instagram, but it will very quickly plug you into an unbelievable community of dads who, again, it would not be it. Chris J and I had the idea that wouldn't it be awesome if we had a community of dads, and without every one of those dads showing up again and again and again, it just wouldn't be what it is. So while I am here talking about it, it's not me. It's this whole group who, again, reach out and I will get you very quickly plugged into them. And it's a completely open door, meaning that if you go in, you spend some time there, and then you go out the door doesn't close. It doesn't matter how often you are there. It is supposed to serve you and however is best for you. And that can change on a day to day basis. So I just want people to know that there isn't any expectation that you're just in and then you have to keep showing up. It's always there. So saddadsclub.com or at sad.dads.club. Or if you're, I was about to say old fashioned, putting myself in that category, sending an email, you could send an email to info@saddadsclub.com, but you could also get that from the website. So
And By the way, this one of the people who commented here is her handle is still my mom. She said she loves the Insta. The posts are relatable for moms too, and she's so right. I actually found you guys. And I am not a dad. I am a mom, but I love your posts and I love what you do, which is why I really wanted to have you guys on. And so I'm so happy that you were here. Thank you so much for everything. Happy Father's Day to you and to your whole family and to everybody at Sad Dads Club. And I'm just so grateful. I'm just so grateful.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and I so appreciate your outreach and allowing me to come on here and flap my gums a little bit.
You- You're great. You're so great. And we're so lucky to have you. So lucky to have you. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This episode will be on our podcast in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, have a good night. Bye.
All right, thank you.